What's going on, guys? So, as I was telling you in an earlier video, that my unboxing of the FN9C in Flat Dark Earth with the contrast sights, that I was going to do some work to it. Nothing major, but as I was saying, that I always get the TrueGlow TFX Pro sights. They're great in the daylight and they're great at night and they're bright, and I really just like them. I have them on any gun I've ever owned, whether I still have or do not have. I've always had these sights on them. And we also are going to put the Apex trigger and sear on this gun, and as you can see, I have the American flag version. That's just what I like for this gun, so that's what we're going to do. In order to do that, we only need a few simple tools, really. As far as for the trigger installation, we'll need some punches, which I have right here in this bag, and I separate these in the bag because I only use those for my guns. You will need a roll of duct tape, unopened, or a armorer's block, whichever you prefer. Roll of duct tape works better for me because I like to be able to punch the pins directly into the tape. You will need a pair of needle nose pliers of your choice, and any hammer will do. I like this because I just like to beat the pins out. And for this installation on the FN9C or the FN509, we're going to want to remove all the pins from right to left. Meaning, if the gun is like this, we want to lay it on the left side and punch pins out from right to left, all the pins. Do not punch the pins out from left to right. You will damage the polymer frame and it will be ruined, and you will you will be trying to find a lower grip frame for your new gun. So that's what you'll need for these for the trigger. And for the sight, you don't necessarily need this. I tend to do it. I use my calipers here. So once I get all this set up, and we're kind of going to have to do it in two different spots, because to do the sights, I have to put this in a... I don't use a sight pusher. I think it's a waste of money. I put my slide and a vise and tap these out and put my new ones in. So that's what we'll be doing. And my vise is set up in the other room, just on the end of the counter. It's just a mobile device, mobile vise that I use for doing this. So let me get this set up right quick, and we'll be right back with you. And we're almost ready, guys. I'm just finishing getting things set up, and we'll be right there. Alright, guys, so here we go. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to put this Apex tactical trigger in, and hopefully I got everything in frame. So we'll go ahead and open this kit up here from Apex. This kit for this particular model was like 160 bucks. Probably way overpriced, but you know, it is what it is. So that comes with the trigger, which is the patent pending trigger, aluminum trigger with the trigger bar and the sear. So we have that out, so we're going to set that over here. I'm just going to go ahead and set it in this box so nothing gets misplaced. So basically, to get started, we're going to want to go ahead and field strip our FN9C. So let's go ahead and lock the slide back. Of course, it's already unloaded and all that. We're going to flip the lever down, and we're going to go ahead and field strip it. On the FNs, I noticed that you have to make sure you push the slide back to battery, pull the trigger, and it will slide right off. You can go ahead and take your slide, and we can go ahead and set that aside for the time being. You can set it out of the way, that's fine. So first thing what we're going to want to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the takedown lever. So you just kind of got to grab it and wiggle it around, and at the same time you want to pull it towards you like so, and just keep spinning it, and then it will eventually spin out like so. So now you can set your takedown lever over there. I do find it important to note that on the FN9C model, you have to punch the pins from right to left. So that needs to sit like so. And they do recommend that after removing this trigger block pin that it be replaced. You probably don't have to, but I went ahead and ordered some extra pins anyway, just for the sake of it, and I will actually be replacing that with a new pin, which is from Midwest Gunworks. You have that there. You want to locate this pin is going to be the hardest pin to get out. So just FYI, it is going to take a little bit of force. I'm actually sitting on my computer table right now because that's the best place for my camera. Ground noise I had to turn down. So anyways, we field stripped everything, and now we're going to take out this locking block pin right here. If you have a starter punch, that would probably be ideal. I do not, so I will be using the smallest punch I have for this. So we're going to go ahead and give this some good whacking now. And as you can see, not too bad. That was actually a lot less harder than I thought it would be, just FYI. Now that we've got that out, we're going to try to wiggle this other one out. And that takes out the trigger retaining pin, like so. And I set them so that I know that they go back in and up, like so. That's very oily. So, and now we can go ahead and remove the locking block. And we can go ahead and remove the slide lock spring. And we can go ahead and remove the slide lock itself, like so. And now we'll do this last rear pin, and we'll give it a good punch. And as you can see there, I've got some. There we go. Always try to hold it. And sorry for that, I'm trying to get this pin out right now. It's being a little stubborn. This is where an armorer's block would be most helpful, but I don't have that, so And there we do. Now we have that out. So now we have all the pins out of the frame. So we can go ahead and set our tape along the side. When pulling this out, this is the firing control unit is actually two separate halves. So you want to hold it together as you pull it out. And as you can see there, we've removed the unit from the frame. And what I'm talking about, and I'm glad I actually held on to it, is this piece right here actually holds these two halves together like so. This clamp, and it was stuck in the frame. So if you wouldn't have had it held, then it would have simply just separated. So we'll set that right there for a moment, and we're going to set our frame out of the way. So now we have our fire control unit right there. Guys, I've got to get a paper towel. This is a lot more oily than I thought. I'm going to pause it. This is actually pretty easy. You got this little pin, which is right there. Kind of already fell off on its own. You're just going to slide that down. And then push this pin back a little bit. And just separate that. And now we've removed the actual trigger portion from there. And then we'll set this over here because that's one of the parts we'll be replacing. And then slide this off like so. And if you just flip it over, and you see you have this little spring right there too, this little bar. I'm gonna go ahead and just slide that out. This is where your needle nose pliers might come in handy. There we go. There, it fell out now. And we'll separate the two halves like so. And this is the actual sear housing unit right there. Gonna wipe my hands off again. As you can see, we have the sear part now as well. This is the actual sear piece that we'll actually be replacing with the Apex model. And I'll hold those up here in a moment so you can see what's actually being changed. So this is the Apex trigger. And this is the stock trigger. Don't really know. Looks like it's got a different shape to it. So hopefully it makes a difference. And this is the Apex sear. And as you can see, the Apex sear is stamped with the Apex logo. So anyways, I got back and I had started putting it back together and I forgot. So when you take this apart, originally you separate this pin. Let me get a punch here. This pin here, they both come out. They're both the same pin. It does not matter which hole they go in. But you actually knock this pin out this way here. And when you slide it out, slide this pin out to past here, then you're able to maneuver this piece over the lip and basically all it's doing is removing the sear spring tension. So we've actually just reinstalled that now, and as you can see, the sear is under the appropriate pressure, and that spring rests, trying to find it, it's going to be real hard to see, but that's where the tip of that spring actually goes through, and that just allows us to have that pressure back on the sear. So that's actually back together. I never did really take the bottom pin out. I didn't really have a need to. It stayed in, and that's where I'm going to let it remain. But if yours does fall out, it is the exact same pin, regardless of where this pin or this pin is the same thing, basically. All right, so moving on. So we're putting the sear back into the fire control unit. And I'm sorry for I'm trying to show y'all as I'm doing it, and it's so tiny. But you can see the little groove right there in the actual sear fire control unit. You want to make sure that your pin is one there and one there. And on the rear, you have this nub, if you will, one on this side, one on this side. You want to make sure that it's resting in this groove right there. Just FYI. And it's oily, so make sure you have a paper towel when you do it. And then you want to get your other there we go. And now we have our two halves together. And there's a little spring, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, right here. We're just going to slide that, and as you can see, that spring right there is where this thing rides back through. Very tedious. And you don't want anything to get in there, so make sure that you there we go. As you can see, you want that spring right there, and you want that evenly. This rod holds this spring right there, so you can see. Then this top part right there, this goes toward the frame rail, so I just like to hold it like so. Slide it in there. Hard to see. This room does not have the best lighting at all. We're going to try to make it work though. And as you do that, push your sear down. And then let it back up. And now you're under pressure. So make sure you're holding it very tightly. And then you want to slide this back on like so. And now this is reassembled the appropriate way, and that is how it should be. Wipe my hands off here again. So now that you have your firing control unit back together, we can set the new Apex trigger back on there. It's pretty easy. As you can see, you will just slide one there, and if you just push the pin a little bit, you can get it right there, and it's perfect. And that's how it holds on. And now you have your new trigger bar hooked up there. Just do be cautious that the will fall off if you're not cautious right there. So just make sure when you get it, you make sure that it's adequately properly. Alright, so now we have the fire control unit together with the trigger, and now we're going to go ahead and put it back in the frame. And this is relatively straightforward. And now you have so that's how that'll look right there. We're going to go ahead and put the pins back in and everything. But that's how the trigger goes. And for the reinstallation, we're going to go back and do everything reverse of how we did. So just bear with me a minute, and we'll go ahead and get started with that. Alright, so I just wanted to come back and kind of go step by step here with what's going on, guys. Ultimately, what we've done is we've put the fire control unit back. We've put the sear assembly back together in the fire control unit. Sorry, it's not focused. So now we have that in there. We've reseated everything in there, and we've punched the fire control unit pin back into the frame, and that's where we are now. And we're going to continue on. Remember, on reinstallation, it will go left to right. And I wanted to point out why they like you to replace the pins on these units. To make sure I've got the right one here. And I always like to check and make sure I have the right pin. And I do it. This is the original pin, 2.46. So with the proper pin, 2.46, 2.47, original pin, 2.47, the new pin. See this galling as you spin the pin? I don't know if it'll focus. That galling there from the old pin, that's why they recommend that you replace it when you switch that out, so your new pin does not have that galling on it, and it will provide a tighter fit in there. Not saying you have to do it, but for $4 or something like that, why not? So we'll be replacing this old pin with the galling on it with the new pin that does not have that. This is very oily. Set our slide lock lever back in there. And we're going to set our spring back in there as well. Alright guys, so after all that, we have completed the installation of the Apex trigger. That's the factory trigger, sear, and the old frame pins. Per the manufacturer, I had ordered the new frame pins, and now we have the FN9C with the Apex tactical trigger installed in there. Function check, it's beautiful. Much lighter, much crisper. Really gonna enjoy that. So that is after the install of the Apex. And now we're gonna, I hope that you like this video and it was entertaining to you. You learned something, learned the proper way to install a Apex trigger and a FN9C. And alright guys, so we went through and did a lot of stuff today. Unfortunately, I had some company come over, so I had to kind of stop in between. But night sights on here, these ones are tritium fiber optics. That's just what I like. That's probably my favorite sight. So anyways, now we have the night sights on there, and I've mechanically centered them with my depth gauge, just meaning that from this side and this side is centered, and the same thing on the front sight. Learning experience on the FN9. The rear sight came off no problem. This front sight is on there. I actually kind of marred up that sight just a little bit. The brass it ruined my brass punch. So I had to go ahead and use the steel, and it also actually cracked my sight press tool. So lesson learned there. Guess I'll buy a better tool. But anyways, there you have it guys. That's the finished product. FN9C Apex trigger and sear upgrade, and tritium fiber optic night sights. In the daytime it hits the fiber optic, and at night we have the tritium to guide the way. And it is the U-notch, which I like. So you get your good sight picture in there. This is hard to do on a camera. Everything's backwards. But that's about what you'd be looking at right there. So happy to have this done. That's all that this gun will be getting. And looking forward to going out and shooting it. And we'll bring you guys along when we get out there. So till that time, stay safe. Keep your rights. Stay armed. And we'll see you next time. Please like, subscribe, share the video, and let's get this channel growing. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I will do my best to get back to you just as soon as I can. And let's get some growth on the channel, guys. All right, we'll see you soon. Later.